keep my 3
All right. Let's see what we got here. Should pop it. Refresh it.
Oh, I'm saying you're clear.
Click. Okay. It normally don't do it when it's a lot, so I'm just trying to make it. Ain't got that many. Good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Now y'all know damn well I wasn't finna let y'all run me off from teaching a class. Alright. Alright. Welcome to the first I ain't gonna say annual, the first ever textured buttercream class. Tonight I'm gonna go over several techniques that are dealing with textured buttercream. If you're working along, like I told you earlier, we're gonna start with some mini cakes. So I'm gonna go over some things with some mini cakes to start out with, okay? So I already have a cake that's already been iced and filled already, okay? So one of the tips for filling cakes is to make sure that you always use a bag when you're filling your cakes with. So when I say use a bag, I mean like a actual icing bag, okay? So when you're filling your cakes, or if you got a tip on your bag, that way you always get the same amount of icing all the way through, okay? So as you can see right here, you can see how much icing is in the cake. It's an even amount of icing all the way around. So that's a tip when you're icing your cake. Always remember that when you shave your layers off, the part that's exposed, the actual cake part, goes down. So each top goes down. So you have, let me show you, so y'all don't be confused. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shave off the top of my cake just to even it off. And this cake has already been frozen. Keep in mind that all of the cakes that I decorate are already frozen, okay? So I'll add a little bit of icing on the board. So as you can see, so the part that I actually shaved off, the part that I shaved off will go down. All right. So then I'll take my bag somewhere. I'll take my bag and fill this. Okay. So that way, I always get an even amount of icing in the middle of the cake. All right. So normally when I say all of my cakes are frozen, I usually have my bake days. Like if I have a lot of orders, I'll bake on Monday and go ahead and wrap them up and freeze them. And they're actually in the freezer until I get ready to decorate them. Now, when you finish decorating, I always put them in the refrigerator. So that way you can reduce the amount of condensation that's gonna be on the cake. So you know when I say condensation, that's when you have all of the moisture that leaks off of the cake. If you go from the freezer after you've decorated it, it needs to go from the freezer to the refrigerator once you finish decorating. All right, so see, I actually put that top part, it goes down. So remember, they all have to go the same way. Otherwise, you'll get that big bulge on the side of your, or that ring on the side of your cake. All right. All right. All right. So we're gonna start here. Now normally we all know how I do my how I ice my cakes. It's usually done upside down. So right now we're just gonna be icing the cakes just the regular way, which everybody is used to, because we're gonna be doing something different anyway. All right. So what I do, I get a good amount of icing on the top. And I'm using right now, I'm actually doing a 5-inch cake. The turntable is really important when you are doing cakes. A good turntable will be your best investment because your turntable does all of the work for you. Okay? So if you notice, I'm always constantly using my turntable. So I'll start and go ahead and ice my sides. Now, when you're icing your cakes, always remember that you need to do icing to icing and not icing to cake. You got everybody that's asking about this mat. It's just a slip guard. You can use any shelving or anything like that. It's nothing special. It's just a slip mat. It's really a baking mat. You can use any of your shelf liners. All right, so remember, as I was saying, you're always gonna ice icing to icing, not icing to cake. If you ice icing to icing, you will never have to worry about getting crumbs in your cake. Now, what I mean icing to icing, I've already started icing right here. So I'm gonna put my icing right on top of that one and continue to push the icing around. That way you won't have any crumbs in your cake. So all you're doing is actually pushing icing all the way around instead of pushing crumbs in and out of your icing. So just because it's called a crumb coat doesn't mean that it has to have a bunch of crumbs in the cake. You want to make it as quick as possible when you're icing your cake. All right. All right, so on to your next step, getting your icing off the side of your cake. So a bench scraper is going to be your best tool for getting the icing off. So with your bench scraper, you guys, I'm gonna ask that you hold all of your questions to a separate post. And there'll be a post that'll have just questions on it, because I don't want anybody to get confused in the middle of this, and it's too many people to answer so many questions. So hold all of your questions until the end, and I'll make a post that just has nothing but questions on it. Okay? So I'm going to take the bench scraper, and I use my torch. Okay? And I heat my torch up. So what heating the torch up does is, when you heat the torch up, you're actually crystallizing the sugar. You're melting down the icing and melting down the sugar content in the icing. So what that does is actually hardens the buttercream. So when you guys see a lot of my cakes that look like they look like fondant, but they're really buttercream, it's because I've heated up the torch. The torch has heated up the spatula, and it gives it that slick, silky finish. All right. So you just take this, you're gonna apply medium pressure to it, because you don't want to apply a lot of pressure, because you don't want to pull off all of the icing that you just did. You apply medium pressure and take that off, okay? I hate to see lines on the cake, so I'm always a stickler for trying to get the lines off of there. Now, the tops, if you are doing, if you're trying to ice your cakes and you want to get it completely perfect, like with the tops and all of that, which I don't do this method, but you have to really take your time and go around and shave off the top of it. I don't do this because you guys know I do the upside down method, and my tops are already completely flat with the perfect edges. But for this, what we're doing tonight, it won't matter, because it'll be something on the top of here. All right, so that's done. So we'll take that, put it in the freezer, okay? Then we're gonna go on to the next one. All right, so that's gonna be one design. Then we'll have another. So we're gonna do the same thing all the way over, because we're gonna have different textures. So if you missed it the first time, watch this again slowly. Can everybody see, or is it like a bright glare on it? All right, so this one was the first one that we pulled out, that we just put in, okay? All right. All right. So I'm gonna go back over this again. We'll go back over it again. This was the first one. All right, so for everyone that has the texture comb from Esther Cakes, I'm sure everybody has probably ordered one by now, but if you have the comb, this comb actually does a couple different things. It's actually 3 combs in one. So you know you get the design with the pleated effect on there when you take it straight around, but you also get your smoothing side, but then you can also take the comb and actually do different designs with the comb. So this is the using this comb is best done when the cake is frozen, okay? And it needs to have at least your crumb coat done, and then you actually apply your next coat of icing. All right. So if you take the comb and go in an up and down motion, you can actually create a wave effect. So if you're doing any under the sea type theme cake, you can use the wave effect, and it actually keeps you from having to go through and actually keep doing the same thing over and over again with your spatula. So you can use that to just go up and down around it to give it more of a wavy effect to the cake. And it's also good when you just want to do something different to your 8-inch round cakes, or your standard cakes that you're giving out that you're just putting icing on. Yeah, it's an easy, really easy effect. So for your standard effect that you get with it, we're gonna go through and do this. So you apply some icing. Again, take your comb, and now you're just gonna drag the comb around the cake. Use your turntable. And that gives it that nice pleating effect. That's what the comb is actually for. All right, so we're gonna take it a step further, because you got your pleated effect on there now. Very nice effect. Really nice. It leaves a really nice impression. Okay, so we're gonna take the same cake that we just did, and we're gonna add something else to it. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take my 125 tip. This is your standard rose tip, 125. All right, gonna take the 125 tip. I'm gonna add some icing in my bag. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use a technique that's called striping. So I'm gonna stripe the bag. So I'll put one color of icing in there, and I'm gonna go and add another color of icing on the other side. So we'll do blue. All right, with this turquoise color I got. All right. All right, so with this tip, what you're gonna do is you're gonna start in the middle. So your tip should be facing just like this. The big side should be down, okay? Take the big side down. You're gonna start in the middle. This is where you have to use your turntable. Your turntable is gonna do everything for you. All right, so you're gonna spin it around. You're gonna make what look like a little cone in the middle, okay? Just keep spinning around and make the little cone. All right, that's called your bud. That's your center part for your flower. All right, so we're gonna build this up. I'm gonna do the exact same thing. You may have to watch this a couple times to get it, okay? All right, so I'm gonna start there. Everything else, I'm gonna slow it down. You're creating petals. All you're doing is making what looks like waves. I'm still spinning my turntable. All right. Make sure you always burp your bag. That gets the air out of your bag. Take it all the way out. All right. So again, this is going to be your 125 Wilton tip. Your 125 Wilton tip. All right. Now from there, you're still not done. So, because this is a lot of mistakes that a lot of people make is they add a pretty element to the cake and then they think they're done. You're not done yet, okay? You got to finish it. It's like getting dressed. So you have to start from the bottom and go everything up, okay? So we'll take that. I'll take now just a round bag. It has no tip on it. No tip on here at all. It's just a hole cut on the bag. And I'm just gonna pipe a small bead border, okay? There you go. So you've taken this beautiful cone and turned a simple cake, just a 5-inch cake, into a cake now that you could probably sell for $25 or $30. So if you're not familiar with the White Flower Cake Shop, they're actually in, if I'm not mistaken, I think they're in Oklahoma. But just a small 5 or 6-inch cake is almost like $40 or $50. So you've taken just a small blank canvas and turned this into something beautiful. Now, Mother's Day just passed, so you already missed Mother's Day. So this is something that you need to start working on your branding for the next holiday. Okay? Yes, these are greaseproof boards as well. These are Wilton greaseproof boards. These boards already have the hole cut in the center for if you're actually stacking. Okay? So there's your first design that you can actually do with your textured cone. Okay? So now this goes back in the refrigerator. Huh? All right. So we have here, this is our next cake that we already had prepared. And you can order this cone. The link has already been provided on the in the picture section for files. You can order the cone, and if you use the code Cake King, you actually get a percentage off of it. Okay. I couldn't remember where they were actually located at, but I just know they make a lot of money off of very small cakes and beautiful piping. All right, so we got the next cake out. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go on to the next effect. That's what we're gonna do. All right, so for your stenciling, which a lot of people, I posted the link in here from Amazon where this stencil is actually from, okay? So you get this stencil from Amazon. So all you need to do is you have to make sure that your cake is either frozen or completely chilled for a while before you use a stencil, because you have to be able to handle the stencil. Now stenciling can be very, very tricky. So the easiest way to do it to try to keep your stencil to stick to your cake is to use toothpicks. All right. So what I do is I'll take the stencil, I'm gonna stick a toothpick in the back, and you don't have to worry about the holes because your icing is gonna cover it up once you completely get it covered, okay? All right, so I'm gonna take my stencil. I'm gonna do a color that you guys can actually see. All right, so I'll take my purple icing. What I'm gonna do, if your cake is frozen, please remember this. If the cake is frozen, you have to work fast with this. You can't, this is not, a stenciling effect is not something that you practice on a real order. Because you have to be precise with the stencil, because if the stencil moves or if it shifts in any way, you have ruined the pattern on the stencil. Stay away from reds, blacks, hot pinks, any bright colors when it comes to stenciling. Because if you take your cake out of the freezer and put it in the refrigerator, if you don't time it just right, your colors are gonna bleed through. And you have a mess of a stencil on there because all of the colors are gonna run completely down the stencil. So remember, if you notice, I usually only do stencils like in light colors, like in white, pastel colors and stuff like that, because the brighter the color, the higher the risk that you run of actually messing up and bleeding it through the stencil, okay? So you have to work fast if the cake is frozen, because otherwise the buttercream is gonna freeze to the cake. So you take a good amount of icing, and it's just as fast as I'm actually moving, you're gonna have to do the same thing. You don't wanna go up past the height of the cake, okay? If you go up past the height of the cake, then you're just gonna have icing all on the top of the cake. And you don't know what you're putting at the top of the cake. All right. So if you're worried about actually getting the icing on the top of the cake, do this. Take it all the way down the length of the cake. So once you get the icing on here, when I was telling you about the toothpicks, don't worry about the toothpicks, take it out. Because now you got enough icing to hold it for it to stick, and you can cover that hole that you had with the toothpick. You got it completely covered now. All right, now it's off. I usually heat my bench scraper up because it makes the icing come off a little bit easier, especially if it's frozen. Heat it up a little bit, take your bench scraper, apply it directly to the stencil, and push that icing off of there. You don't want to see the stencil. If you see the stencil and it's almost translucent, you've taken too much icing off. You need to go back and add some icing. You want to see it, but you don't want to see it because you can almost take off too much icing and not see the design at all. All right. There you go. Now you just take what you have on top, if you're actually keeping it the same color, and just push that along. Now on the back side, if it doesn't go all the way around, now you have to go through and match up where the pattern left off at. You got to remember, you can't always have a back to a cake. You got to get out of that. All decorators need to get out of the habit of thinking that if it doesn't look good, I can put it in the back. Because you may get to an event where the cake is sitting in the middle of the room. So what happens when people have to walk all the way around your cake and they see all the mess ups that you got in the back? So get out of your mind that you can throw stuff in the back if it's messed up. You shouldn't have a back or a front to a cake. All of it needs to look just alike. All right? So if we were finishing off this, we'll just add some icing to the top of the cake. Since we're talking about texture, remember that it doesn't always have to be smooth on the top. So before we had all these fancy tools and everything like this, we used to use our spoons. And when you're doing it, you're just making patterns. All you were doing, you remember when your mother, your grandmama used to make patterns, all they was just doing was making swirls on the cake. Well, that's what that is. That's just another texture. A lot of people love just a textured effect on a cake because it's simplistic. All you have to do is add some nice fresh flowers, add some hydrangeas or some roses or something, add a little greenery in there, and you have a simplistic, just a very rustic looking cake. So it doesn't always have to be smooth on the top. And you may have to go through and just clean up your edges. If it's sticking out too far, like sometimes you can leave too much icing on there and you actually have to push it out. You have to just push it back in, okay? So that's your stencil pattern. Now, on a regular cake, you would have this iced perfectly. Yeah, you would have this iced perfectly so you wouldn't see any of the cake behind there, okay? All right. Everybody got that? Good. So when you're closing up, well, mine is in the water, so I can't really show you. But you have to match the pattern up. It's the same thing as if you were reapplying the stencil. It's not gonna work as good now because mine is already wet. But you would put the pattern back right there. It's the same thing. So instead of it, wherever you start, wherever you stop your pattern at, you'll start it back right there. So you'll just fill in that gap right there. Yes, you do. You need to put it back in the refrigerator again before you lay it back down again. All right, we got that. Perfect. Stencils are really, really easy. The larger the cake is so much easier because the patterns actually meet up. When you get to your 8s and your like your 8s and your 10s, the pattern will almost match up perfectly. So depending on where you got your stencil from, a lot of times it actually matches up just right. All right. So the next one we're going to do is going to be a color blend. So with this one, you have to use a much larger bench scraper if you were actually just smoothing the icing colors on. But we're not going to smooth it on. We're going to use our texture comb to actually make the lines, the pleated lines on this cake. All right. Well, we already did that one. We're going to do the other one with the larger one. So for this one, we're going to use our large bench scraper, okay? So this one actually goes up the length of the cake that I'm going to bring out. So what we have now is a double barrel cake. So it's not really double barrel, because if it's double barrel, you'll actually have two layers and two layers. But this is a 3-layer cake, all right? Completely 3 layers. So when we're talking about textures and applying different textures, we're gonna use, this time we're gonna use, actually use colors. My bad. It just popped out and it just knocked me out. Look, just like Big Mama says, just tear it up, just tear it up. You don't want it, just tear it up. Okay, so we're gonna use different colors. So what I've done already is I prepared all my colors in bags. All right, so I got all my colors in bags. I got 4 colors. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start with my purple. All right, so all I'm gonna do is just make a line around it. I'm all out of order. All right, so we good? We all good? All right, let's go. So, as I said, this is the length of my cake. You can actually get one of these at Home Depot or Lowe's, any place like that. All right, so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna heat our bench scraper up. Make sure it's good and warm. Take this, lightly press it. All right. So we're gonna take this, just like this, put it back in the freezer. While that's in the freezer, we're gonna go to our next rustic look, all right? All right. All right, we're gonna go back to the beginning where we just icing our cake using our turntable. Make sure you use the turntable. All right. So as I was telling y'all earlier, you can use both sides of this. So I'm gonna use the side now for the smoothing side, all right? All right. All right. So, same thing, same principles that we just went through, all right? We're gonna do the same thing again, all right? Start with our colors. We're gonna do something a little different this time. got our colors on here this time. So this time we're gonna use our cone. All right, our texture cone. Take your cone, do the same thing. Drag your colors out. Clean off your board because you're gonna have a lot of icing. And you're gonna go back this time. Don't already. Keep a steady hand, keep the cone directly on your board, and continue to go back around. You have the same effect. This is so much easier on larger cakes because the cake holds the weight. That's it. It's really just that easy. gotta flip it over. What about it? I ain't on there. It ain't saying. All right, so we have got to do 4 cakes in an hour, 4 different textures in 1 hour. So hopefully you guys can see that simple tools, you don't have to go out and spend a lot of money on all these different cake supplies, or when you take all these various classes that they give you all these huge supply lists. If you noticed, I only put a few supplies on there that I was going to be using tonight, and I'm using those supplies: your bench scraper, an angle spatula, your turntable, and some icing. You don't need a whole lot of supplies. You don't have to go out and buy all these supplies just because you see them on TV or just because people advertise all these different things. It doesn't take that much. You don't have to put a lot of money into these supplies. You can get beautiful cakes with simple techniques and simple tools that you already have in the kitchen. All of these classes are geared towards taking you back to the basics. All of this stuff is really basic techniques that you should have learned in the beginning of your cake career. But because the market has been so saturated with so much knowledge that a lot of times we skip over all of the basics and try to get to the advanced techniques, and we don't even know how we got started. So if you take everything back to the basics, to where everything came from, you will learn all the things that you want to learn later on. So hopefully this class is giving you some insight on some of the simple things that you can do. Please make sure that if you have not already, to order the texture cone from Esther Cakes. You can look at, I'll post the website again in here, but you can actually get 17% off the cone. She has a new cone that's coming out. We thought it was going to be here tonight so that I can actually show you the cone that I will be using, the new cone. But it's a beautiful cone. It actually takes away from having to do this all the way around to get those lines. You don't have to do that anymore. You could just, this comb does it for you, okay? All you have to do is drag the comb around, and it makes those beautiful textured lines all the way around. And I just love it because that's the one that's the design that I use the most when I'm just doing simple cakes, and all I have to do is put a border on them and pipe a couple of flowers in the top. So hopefully you guys utilize these tools that are out there, and her service is extremely fast. Again, I've seen people get cones in like 2 days. Like she ships everything like overnight. So depending on the area that you're in, it will usually come like the next day or so. But if you use the discount code Cake King, you will be able to get the discount off of the cone. Okay. So again, hopefully if you're watching the replay or you're catching this, I hope that you guys actually learn something for it. I will actually post one question bank post that will have a post where you can post all of your questions on it. So if you have any of your questions that you'll need, you can post any of those questions right there. Now, granted, it may take me a little bit of time to go through here and get to the questions because you guys know I'll be out for the next almost month or so. So in time, I'll get in to give it answer the questions. Talk to your peers. I create these groups in these classes like this because I want you to be able to interact with your peers. A lot of times, your peers can answer questions. You have some amazing decorators that are right in this room, that are right in the same group that can help you. A lot of the questions that you may have are right here already in the group, and they may have already been answered. Just keep going through here, okay? I've actually turned off the feature to where you can actually go in and post on here, because I don't want the group to be saturated with a whole lot of different posts and people posting a lot of different things. I'll make the post and you can comment beneath it. So I'll make a post to say everybody post their work from tonight, and we'll post everything under that post. So it makes it easier to search for different things when other people are coming in the group and may not know where everything is at. All right. I hope that everybody's learned something. I will say this. I want to apologize for my frustration that went along with this class, because I'm human, and y'all know I work a full-time job, and I also have 9 classes total on top of actually getting ready to go on tour. So there's a lot of information that has to be trickled down between all of these groups to try to make this whole thing work. I manage my own website. I don't have other people to do my website. So there's going to be glitches sometime. There were a lot of people purchasing this class, so there was going to be some mistakes. There was going to be some things that happened. Some of you got in it with no problem. Some of you guys had problems. There was a timeline that you had to get in. So, I mean, I wasn't going to put everybody in. I wasn't going to stop the class to wait on other people to get in, okay? So, I wanted to make sure that I gave you guys my undivided attention. Yes, I was frustrated. Yes, I came home cursing every day. I know my brother is tired of me. I know that Kim is tired of me. I've been going off every day. But the class has been informative. I hope you guys have learned something. If you want to send something, everybody saying they want to tip me, I'll post my PayPal name up here. I'll post the Cash App, even though I hate Cash App. I wish y'all would stop using it. I wish it would go out of business. I really wish that their company would go bankrupt, because it's not safe. There were a lot of glitches in it. There was a lot of security glitches in it over the Christmas break, and they were the reason why so many people were conned out of millions of dollars because of that app. So I'm not really a fan of Cash App, but if that's all you use, then that's fine. All of the money is going towards a good cause. I said it on my live the other day, but I'm actually getting ready to do a big dinner for single women who are single mothers of kids who have disabilities. So that's my aim from doing these mini classes like this and these mini tutorials, to actually raise the money to do that big dinner like that. So hopefully by the fall, we'll have it all planned out, and my team will get together and do something amazing for these women who are so deserving of all of the things that are coming towards them. I've seen people firsthand that have to raise kids by themselves, and their kids have disabilities, and it's a lot of work when you don't have the father in their life. I didn't grow up with a father, so I know it's a lot of work on a parent. So I definitely hope you guys have enjoyed yourselves and you learned something tonight. Again, I'll make the post with the different questions and different things that you guys need to know, where you can post your cakes as well. And again, I really appreciate all of you guys' support, and thank you again, and I hope you guys have enjoyed tonight.